And my story is similarly complicated. It's about the falling number of Chinese tourists to the Indonesian vacation hotspot of Bali, and the strange fact that the Indonesian tourism authorities seem pretty happy about it.
That seems really odd to be happy about falling tourist numbers. So, what are the details?
So, the first thing to know is that the number of Chinese tourists to Bali had been massively growing over a few years. Between 2013 and 2017, the number of tourists more than tripled from roughly 387,000 to 1.3 million. But the Indonesian tourism authorities seem to think that many of them were the wrong type of tourists, according to the Australian Financial Review.
Wrong type of tourist? What's the wrong type of tourist?
Well, some Chinese tour operators sell what's known as $0 packages. These hook the tourists in with a super low rate, but then the operators make their money back by taking the tourists into Chinese-owned shops and restaurants where they're sold goods at vastly inflated prices. Importantly, payments are often made with China's WeChat Pay platform, so the transactions don't even register in Bali. That means Indonesia sees very little economic benefit from their visits. So Indonesia, working with China's National Tourism Association, has cracked down on these $0 package companies.
So what's been the outcome of this crackdown?
Well, official data shows Chinese tourism visits to Bali fell by about 16.5% this year. But what the Indonesian authorities are hoping is that the drop in $0 Chinese tourists might encourage other tourists who are more beneficial to the local economy to return.
Now, that's all very interesting, but I'm not a Chinese tourist, and nor am I planning a trip to Bali anytime soon. So I got to ask, why should I care? Why is this story so important?
China's outbound tourism has massive global significance. Last year, China officially became the largest source of tourists in the world, with the number of overseas trips reaching 150 million and total spending reaching $127.5 billion. What this story shows is countries are now not just about the quantity of tourists from China, but also the quality. In fact, Indonesia is just part of a larger trend. Their fight against $0 tourism was modeled on Thailand's earlier attempt to curb the practice. And now Cambodia has said they'll also follow in these footsteps. So ultimately, the story shows how China is influencing the global tourism industry and how countries are responding to it.
Well, thank you very much for that.